again, quick explanation for folks before I just pass it over immediately to Jamarl. Jamarl is in Geneva, actually coming back from Geneva pretty much as we speak. He's on the phone with us. He's been out of the studio this week. And in the interim, we've had Austin Pelly, producer for the show, joining me on many days and many instances throughout this week. I think Monday you were in all day with me. Tuesday it was mostly in. Anyway, he's in here. Jamarl's on the phone and coming back. And Jamarl, you'll be back in the studio this coming Monday, right? I'm pretty sure Friday is going to be like too packed a day. You're just getting back from your trip. I don't even know if you'll be back literally by the time the show starts. When are we going to see you next?
Yeah, Monday. We don't even get back until late Friday.
Exactly.
Like it's going to be late Friday night.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be like an overnight trip and everything else. Yeah, it's going to be a long, long, long trip back. It's okay. This has been prodigious, to put it mildly, and not separate from just the experience of the travel and everything else. It's a different experience doing this. And I'm a sucker for politics, and so getting to watch these guys have the press conference, getting to have the conversations, because you need to have the conversations just to even have the talk. You're a political animal. You get to have fights with the various people in different countries who are in their own propaganda. That stuff is prodigious. And it allows you really to get this kind of feel that every country has their own theme and their own point of view when they're presenting information. And some of it is insane. Like Armenia, having a conversation with an Armenian reporter. And she's like, yeah, Armenia gave Nagorno-Karabakh on purpose. What are you talking about? Well, there's a plan to give it away. And having a big fight with her there. I don't know that woman from a hole in a wall. It's awesome. It's like, that's me, right? That's my thing, right? I like having those conversations. And so it's like basically the meeting between these two guys, the Western press made themselves part of the story. But I think the key part of the story is that Biden wants something different. Putin wants something different. The White House press, not so much.
Yes.
Fascinating when you watch it.
Exactly. They're going to have to Biden is going to have to drag them by the tail or something like that. It's going to be like a long and arduous process of slowly. And I saw like the cognitive dissonance on the part of broadcasters at home. Anyway, Jamarl, go for it.
Yeah. I mean, and look, that even depends. What are they going to do? Are they going to put a knife in Biden? After the glowing coverage that CNN gave and the Washington Post gave and the New York Times gave, is the honeymoon over? Because Biden is trying to have some kind of rapprochement, as they call it. No, the reality of it is, and this is what I think, Biden has a philosophical responsibility that extends beyond the nonsense that goes on in Western media. That's what it is. So when Biden is in that role and Biden is saying, all right, as president of the United States, I am watching a situation take place in Ukraine. I am watching the Western press corps scream that the United States should do something about it. And the catch becomes, if Russia or if the Ukraine decides to attack and do something provocative and Russia crushes them, what does the United States do? What do we do? What does the Washington press corps do? What does the New York Times say? What do all of these people say? They're going to be screaming at Biden for military action because they don't have the responsibility of America. They don't have the responsibility of people dying, so they can write those stupid headlines. They can get out there and howl like howler monkeys that, hey, did you punch him in the neck? Did you punch him in the throat? Did you give him a purple nipple? You didn't do that, Joe Biden. So what does Joe Biden do? Joe Biden doesn't want to get called weak. Joe Biden entirely recognizes the press situation to which he comes in. So for the first 5 minutes, I told Putin this. I told him this. I told him this. I looked him in the eye. That type of stuff. You get that. Then he shifts down. And you get a sane Biden who is talking almost in the same language of Putin. We have a philosophical responsibility. We're talking about peace and security. We need to have a predictable relationship, even if we're going to be competitors. And Biden even goes further and makes the point of saying, look, on the things, we can maintain our values while simultaneously looking out for our own respective interests. That is astonishing stuff coming from an American president, even agreeing on principle to the cybersecurity things or all of these different things that they're going to put together. Now, the catch becomes, can you do it? That's the catch. Putin can do it. Putin can do it. Yeah. Now, he has red lines, and Putin is not going to do anything on those red lines. And I strongly suspect Biden doesn't believe he's going to do anything on those red lines. I mean, regardless of the nonsense that media say, Biden knows, all right, I can't get anything out of him on this, this, and this. However, we can work together on this, this, and this. The media is going to be screaming about the stuff that he can't work on. So Biden's going to have to give them, I told him Putin this, I told him I gave him the business. But behind the scenes, in the reality of things, these guys are trying to find some level of stability and predictability within the context of the relationship. That's a win.
It is. And another way of looking at this, there are two things, and I'll pass it back to you again. One, both of them have to do with timing. One is the timing the day of, which is when I was watching your Twitter feed on this, you were talking about how, okay, Biden left pretty early. Biden was leaving in his limo. And your first thought was maybe that's not a good sign necessarily. Maybe talks have broken down. They're angry at each other, whatever. They've reached an impasse, something. And Biden now is forced to leave. It doesn't seem like that happened. And so my assumption there, maybe it's intuition or whatever, is that they had a short meeting. They didn't want to make it too long because realistically, if they had had a longer meeting, they wouldn't have gotten any more out of it. And they would have had the perception, okay, you guys are doing this big, long thing. What are you going to come out of it with? And it would have been nothing. They just had a short meeting. It was sort of, relatively short, a couple hours still, resetting up some ties, going lightly over the issues, and just like talking for a little bit, that kind of thing. Which means, frankly, that's about the best that you can reasonably hope for, which is a success then. I'd call that a success. And the other thing with timing is the timing of the year. Biden went now. He didn't go too much later, and he didn't go right at the beginning of the year, which would have signaled that this is a big thing that he's working on. It seems like he tried to downplay it or something. He didn't want to be seen as immediately trying to reconcile America with Russia, but it's clearly a priority for him. He called it. And so there are these signals that he wants to ease things up. He understands all these pressures. He's trying to keep him down. I guess what I'm worried about is that Republicans are going to go a little bit crazy, and it'll start, you won't even be able to tell exactly if it's a joke or if it's serious, and it'll kind of start, with some people as a joke, and it'll get more serious. That Biden is being soft on Russia. They'll start saying the same sorts of things about influence and Putin buying him off that Democrats said for years about Trump. I'm a little bit worried that that's going to happen, and at first it will just be a tit for tat, but then it'll escalate into serious stuff, because you can already see it with allegations about Hunter Biden in Moscow and Hunter Biden in China. I just see the room for this propaganda campaign pushing, like people were pushing Trump closer to aggression with these countries, and Trump was pushing himself at China. You see what I'm saying? Republicans pushing Biden too.
I totally see what you're saying. So a normal thing in politics has to do with image and your ability to maintain a certain image against opposition and people who are going to attack you. If your name is Bill Clinton, you can pass Glass-Steagall. You can pass NAFTA. You can do all that stuff. If your name is George Bush, the Democratic Party is going to lose its mind, and so you're trying to destroy America. Basically, Bill Clinton has the credibility of doing that because in people's minds, well, he's a Democrat. He's not going to do anything that's going to go too far in regards to hurting the left and stuff. That's their headspace. They're wrong, but that's their thinking. So Bill Clinton gets leeway to do that. Nixon can take that trip to China. Reagan can take that trip to Russia because from their standpoint, we're neocons. They know that we bomb places illegally. That's how strong we are. And so if we're going to take this step, then this step is perfectly fine, and we don't believe that these guys are going to give out America. That's the framing. Now, the catch becomes, what happens when the Republican president is screamed at for being a plant for Russia, being Vladimir Putin's whipping boy, for being controlled like an animatronic robot? Well, does that give the Democratic Party all of a sudden leeway in the way that Republicans had leeway on this very specific issue? Isn't that fascinating? Yeah. It's a polarity shift in regards to the context of our politics. The catch becomes, though, whether or not Biden can pull it off. Meaning, just because the optics look that way now in the beginning, what does it look like in 20 moves when these guys are going, ham? And we don't even know how the U.S. media is going to handle this yet. These guys have been howler monkeys, right, leading up to it. And on the night of the event. And so it's like, all right, Joe Biden is going to have to dance between the raindrops. Like breakdancing. Because he's going to have to avoid his own party. He's going to have to avoid Republicans to have every incentive in the world of putting a knife in him.
This is where I could get more optimistic, and maybe it's just that I'm always trying to push back on something, no matter how gently. But there's also this possibility that Biden kind of just leads them along by the nose or something like that, and
it's possible
that it doesn't matter that he, as like the avatar of the Democratic establishment or whatever, is just able to set the impression. This is how things are going. You're coming along. You get my point. If the party's going for it, which I can't imagine Biden's doing anything to renegade here, then I think that the system will sort of work I think you see what I'm saying. It'll work itself out. Whatever anxieties you might imagine journalists covering this would have, they would be quietly relieved, because by that time, the internal conversations in these newsrooms would have changed, because you would have had messaging, long-term messaging coming out of the White House, coming out of the DNC, coming out of back rooms. You get, private connections, those kinds of things. I'm optimistic about that, Jamarl. Real quick question. We're about the time where we would normally break. I know you need to get on this train. Do you need to bail now? I'm just unsure about the exact minute.
I need to check with Mindy in a few, but real quick, just on that point.
Yeah.
The push break just a little bit. I get your optimism, and so am I. My optimism is more so on Joe Biden being a adept political actor. Now, what I mean by that is, whatever you think of him, Joe Biden has missed several steps, but he is definitely an adept political actor in regards to the way he looks and manages the media and all that stuff. If he can do it, yes, that's good. But he's going to need to be able to pull every last political acumen out of the 47 years. Because think of how media in America typically reports information. They drop context, right? Did media play Vladimir Putin's speech in its entirety in the United States? They should have. The speech was phenomenal, meaning the press conference. He took all comers. And so it's like, Biden has this terrific thing. I guess my point is, from the standpoint of media, it typically drops context. So there is no underground, bubbling up thing where people have this perspective of reality that is whole. They have a biased view of reality going back for God knows how many years. I mean, look at the Washington press corps when they were asking questions. Like, that should get across to you, right?
Yeah.
There is zero context in the way that media in the United States talks about stuff. So Biden is basically going to have to construct a context. At the exact same time, he's trying to shepherd this through. I hope that makes sense.
Yes.
They've dropped context for so long, and the Democratic Party has basically whipped this stuff up for so long as a way of attacking Trump. Now he's in power. Now he's worried because he doesn't have a predictable relationship with Russia. He believes that things could possibly go off the rails. That's why they keep saying security, 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 and China. And so the Western media doesn't get that. They don't get the reality of it. They don't have to deal with the mechanics of it. They don't get the superseding idea that there's something to America that goes beyond just their normal back and forth rhetoric. And some of that stuff deals with this notion of destroying the world. Listen to Biden. I swear to God, it's there. When he's talking, it's there. It's sleeping behind the scenes because he can't say it entirely to Western media because
what are you talking about there? You're talking about the real politics stuff. You're just talking about America's interests beyond our rhetoric, right?
Yes. No.
What are you talking about?
The world's interests beyond the rhetoric. The world's interests. Yes, I'm taking it there. Because it seems like that's where Biden is on some level. There's one aspect that's, yes, America, we can't let China get past it and all that stuff. There's that where, it's existential if China takes the lead in regards to world hegemony. That's the way America frames it. But there's also this aspect when he's talking about Russia, about world responsibility, philosophical responsibility in keeping this world safe and keeping this world secure. We have the most nuclear weapons. We can't let this get out of control. We need to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Listen to Putin's speech. He says the same thing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. They were paralleling each other. It's not that they're going to agree across the board. It's not even that anything is going to fundamentally change in regards to the mechanics of the relationship of, okay, this person is Ukraine, we're angry about that. This person is Crimea, we're angry about that. Navalny, whatever else the Western press comes up with. But regardless of what they print, Joe Biden really does, honest to God, and I'm shocked to say this, I don't know if this is old age, but seems to have been worried about the unpredictability of the relationship between the United States and Russia, considering the weapons that they have.
But that's the thing is he should be. If he weren't, he would be out of touch in a way that you'd hope he wouldn't be, although many would assume he would be just based on his age and all the evidence he's given of cognitive decline, that kind of thing. Media. What do you say?
Based on Western media. If you base it on, meaning if Western media was the president, we'd be at war. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
They don't have this responsibility of country, of this responsibility of world. They don't have it. It's not there. To them, you should have punched them in the face. You should have punched them in the face. It's like, all right, if you guys were in the meeting, what would you have done? Well, they probably would have did what CNN did. Well, I am a reporter from America, and I get to tell you what to do. And so I am going to ask you these stupid questions about human rights, despite the fact that we have black sites. And I'm going to bring in Navalny, despite the fact that Assange is sitting in a jail cell doing nothing, where Navalny is a criminal. Despite, you could go down the list on this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Western press, not there. These guys are idiots. Pompous, full of themselves, idiots. And those are the people who were asking questions. And by the way, Putin took those questions. Putin took those questions.
Well, Biden and Putin took their questions. That's a really screwed up part about this, coming from that perspective. And this is where I hope like the veil briefly gets lifted for some folks. Is that okay? You're watching. It's not like Biden exclusively fielded questions from RT or whatever. And
no, RT wasn't even in the room.
Yeah, exactly.
They weren't even.
Biden exclusively selected questions, and this is, of course, the thing that anybody watching it, with a sort of geopolitically unbiased mindset or whatever, would notice. Biden took questions from his press. Putin took questions broadly from Biden's press, which is, if you're thinking in terms of authoritarian leaders who don't want to get pushback and don't want to have to respond to it or be held to account for it, what do you see there?
Think about that. He's a dictator, but he's taking questions from all comers.
It doesn't make any sense. And that's where I hope that cognitive dissonance just dislodges something in some people.
It's bizarre. Oh, yes. It's utterly bizarre. And cognitive dissonance is an understatement. I mean, like I said, Putin had RT, Wall Street Journal, CNN, hostile press, like full blown. I would have fled your tires and kicked you in the knees if I got the opportunity. Press, and he took it. I take all comers. I respect that.
Did you see the CNN reporter that just pressed Putin again and again? And then she's like, you didn't answer my question. I asked, how do you respond to all the political controversial people you're putting in prison and killing?
Yeah. He was full of himself, right? Like, he was like, I'm going to give this guy the business. What gives him the point of view to ask a question with that much, oomph in it from CNN? Think about that. I mean, because if you think about the question, can't Biden get asked the exact same question? Honestly, just be honest. The answer is yes. And you could bring up, hey, what about the black sites? What about Guantanamo Bay? What about, you guys were murdering people left and right. What about the drone strike in Afghanistan that killed all those people? You don't even know if they're affiliated with Iran. Putin starts bringing up all of this stuff. And CNN reporter is like, whoa, he's bringing up stuff. We're not used to that.
Well, it's our dirty laundry. It's our dirty laundry. And if we don't want to air it, how dare he?
But think about the framing, though. It didn't even occur to him. It didn't occur to the CNN reporter. Think about that. Like, how weird is that? Like, if you had a historical context, right? And that historical context went, I don't know, 50, 100 years. And you were studying, you were learning everything that you could. You were looking at political machinations. You were looking at these, like, Operation Mockingbird and these CIA projects on home country. And that should give you this kind of wider context when you're looking at geopolitical politics, where you're in home country or others. And then CNN reporter asks that question. What the hell is the CNN reporter talking about? And yeah, Putin joked him. And if you remember, the guy who asked the question immediately after joked the CNN reporter too. Because those guys are foreign reporters. They're not stuck in the Western press, and they have a larger context of the world. That's what I mean. The Western press was embarrassing in this.
Yeah.
They had a point of view. They had a clear and specific point of view. And that point of view was, you didn't hit them hard enough. And it's like, okay, what did you expect me to do? And what did you really believe the purpose of this was? Did you honestly believe I was going to yell at Putin for 6 hours? I mean, come on. They're very bizarre.
I think so. Weird. Yeah, I think so. And it's weirdly like high schooly or something like this. The thing, and maybe, this is an event of kind of larger importance, but there's actually very, very little, in effect, we can say about what deal they potentially reached on any given issue, if they came to any common terms or anything like that. So, what can we talk about? We can talk about what we know about it. And a lot of what we see about it, all that we really see about it are the press conferences. And it's this dynamic. And so I think it makes sense, we're focusing on the press, just because it's the call and response. It's what we saw, the dynamic between. Anyway, the thing is, it's about what you'd expect. And it's like all bathwater, no baby or something like that. What you'd want, and coming back to the metaphor that you used, you'd want the press to have a balanced, or not the metaphor, but the idea, a model. You want the press to be both concerned with the affairs of state and the larger important matters that concern our globe. And I'm not just talking about global warming. I'm talking about like the threat of nuclear war and general warfare, and like discord between nations, and how these kinds of things lead to like long-term depressions and declines and rivalries, and can bring down, billions of people at this point, can kill. are put into serious long-term economic catastrophe. Billions of people. We've lost sight of that, I think. And so instead, what you get when you're watching your MSNBCs and your CNNs and your Foxes, you see a lot of surface level, more superficial, and more high school-y kinds of thought processes having to do with how world leaders relate to each other, how we're supposed to relate to other nations. And it's like, I'm far in some, and I should be objectively less interested in that than I am in what's actually objectively important on a global level. That should take predominance. You know, that should be the most dominant thing. In other words, they lack the thing that's important, and they're filled with things that are relatively unimportant. And I'm just hoping we don't fall to that same sin at some point tomorrow. Hopefully we do our best in our own way. Anyway, that's a little bit more philosophical, but I'm just kind of riffing on what you were saying there.
So you're right. I have to head out. Train is about to head out. Many of us like, we got to leave. Look, guys, I this was a great look. I explained my take. Yeah, Shane, you're right.
We'll talk more soon. I'll let you go. I definitely don't want you to miss the train. Jamarl, thank you for joining us. It'll be great to see you soon. Have a great train ride. Have fun, and have a great weekend too.
Thanks, man. You too. Have a good one, guys.
All right, peace out. See you, Jamarl. And I'm going to go into a very slightly early break here, I believe. Good to talk with Jamarl. Good to hear from him. Glad to have him back soon. Again, he's for everybody who spontaneously kicked into the last part of that conversation and is aware that Jamarl's away but doesn't know where he was. He was in Geneva. He's leaving Geneva now. He was covering the meeting between Biden and Putin. He's been gone all week and he'll be coming back this coming Monday. And it's great to hear from him. Anyway, we're going into a break. We'll be coming back speaking with Carl Jha about a bunch of different stuff. The situation in Hong Kong, talking about China generally, G7's perspectives on Taiwan with the G7 countries effectively recognizing it and saying that they would step in. At least that's what the Western media has reported about it. Also, China and Russia standing together, what that means, why we're not necessarily seeing that talked about quite as much as we might want to be by Western news media outlets. Anyway, that's with Carl Jha. On the other side of this break, you're listening to Fault Lines. We'll be right back.
Fault Lines.